to remind our listeners that you're listening to The Secrets of Success. My name is Bill Horan. The show is produced at the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. This show will be back after this brief intermission.
When you were a little kid and you thought about what you wanted to be, teaching was at the top of your list. But things changed. And as you got older, teaching didn't seem like the best option anymore. So you're thinking you'll be something else. But what would your 12-year-old self say? Now you want to be a doctor. You don't think teachers save lives? 25 at a time. An actress? Try playing a different role every time the bell rings. How about a scientist? Ever heard of physics? Chemistry? Who do you think teaches that? Teachers today are breaking down obstacles, finding innovative ways to instill old lessons, and taking learning far beyond the four walls of the classroom. It's time to recognize that great things are happening in teaching and put it back on your list. Don't try to convince yourself otherwise. You had it right the first time.
Find out how you can make more at teach.org. Make more. Teach. Brought to you by Teach and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Secrets of Success. I'm your host, Bill Horan, and today we're speaking with Martin Yate, author of The Ultimate Job Search Guide. By the way, Martin, before we even get into this, I'd like to recommend to people, if you have someone in your family that you think, or that person who may be graduating soon or in a few months or next year, you may want to take down this information about Martin Yate and the Ultimate Job Search Guide. I'm sure there's tips in here that the person never thought of. I'm looking at this book, and we interview very key people in the world on our show, and professors. And there's things here that I said to Martin, I would have had no idea, and I would be that person who never gets a job because I just wouldn't be doing it correctly. Martin, you say that a resume starts with getting inside customers' heads to see what they want to buy. Can you explain that process? And, for instance, if you were looking for a job, how you would do that as the person searching?
Well, you take the target job title you're after, and number one, you need to read the job descriptions and recognize that people get hired on their credentials, not their potential. So you don't get hired and get a promotion at the same time because you don't have the credentials, you don't have the experience. That's number one. Once you know that this is the job that I have the credentials for, I can do this job. We have a process that I wanted to call how to get inside your customer's head to find out what they want to buy so we know what to sell them, but that was a bit long. So we call it something called TJD, Target Job Deconstruction. And I explain it in the Ultimate Job Search Guide, and it's a simple way that you collect half a dozen job postings and see what they have in common and see which are the dominant needs. And this gives you an objective analysis of what the customer base wants and a template for the story your resume needs to tell.
So you're getting... let's say, almost like testing, not the competition in this sense, but you're going out and getting other postings and finding out what's being asked and kind of focusing on those key words that's in there. Am I hearing it correctly?
Not so much the key words as groups of responsibility in which they will use words and phrases that we sometimes refer to as keywords. The keywords are the hard skills and sometimes soft skills that are relevant to executing this job successfully. And the more the resume is published with the language the customer, the employer, is using to describe it, the more it's going to resonate when it's read, and the more discoverable it's going to be in the first place.
Martin, if there was one or two skills today that you would say that you're looking for someone, and you know what you've observed across the board, what would those skills be for someone coming out of college? I'm just going to ask you that coldly, and what do employers look for?
When you come out of college, you think you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. You're not.
Yeah, but you're a college graduate. You're cool.
The gods gave you one mouth and two ears. Use them in the appropriate manner. Right? If anyone says jump in the first year, the only thing you say is how high. You know nothing. If you go in there being a know-it-all, you will make a bad start. Women invariably make better starts after college because they're more mature. Their brains mature sooner than men's. But the best advice is, it's great if you can get a job at Google. But guess what, guys? Yeah, you want to get a job there because they do dry cleaning and they have a Starbucks and they serve lunch. Yeah, you know why? They don't want you to leave. They don't want you to have a life outside of work. Back to you, Bill.
Now, you mentioned also something called visual accessibility. What is that, and where does that fit into the resume process?
Okay. This goes back to what we were saying about the 1 or 2 page resume. That's so ingrained in people. You'll have a man or a woman with experience that should really take 3 pages, but they know it has to be 2 pages, so they make the font smaller and smaller and smaller and jam as much on the page as they can. The density of type makes it difficult to read. There needs to be white space to help our visual accessibility of the words. And for example, paragraphs should never be longer than 6 lines. If we do this begins to make a difference to how we see ourselves and how we present ourselves.
Martin, I would think, just what I've learned reading and going through your book and talking to you, I would honestly feel that the older worker, and older being someone I would say from 40 up that's looking for a job or getting back into the workforce, would really need an expert to do a little coaching with this. Am I being overly strict or fearful?
You mean dealing with age discrimination?
Well, no, just we're talking as a question. I would think they'd...
Just for in the areas, if you...
I would think I would need your help. If I had a resume, I would want you looking at it.
To invest a few $100s or $1,000 in a resume or some coaching, that's a week's work, right? In terms of less than a week's work, it's 2, 3, 4 days maximum salary, and this is, no one has this training. And surely if there's an opportunity to get your resume done properly and catch up on career management and job search skills and interview skills, you should do it. It's in your own best interest.
Now, Martin, again, I want our audience to know we're talking today to Martin Yate, Y-A-T-E. His book is The Ultimate Job Search Guide, and I would say it looks about the size of a small phone book, except we don't have phone books anymore. So people won't know what I'm talking about. But it's a comprehensive book, and I emphasize that because it's giving you a lot of good information, and I almost look at it like cybermetrics for baseball, that we're trying, if I'm right, we're trying to put the odds in our favor, and any of these tips that we can incorporate into our resume and actions that we can take them and learn what the employer is looking for, it's going to increase our odds of getting the job. Is that correct?
Yeah. Can I throw in a word here?
Absolutely.
Bill's talking about the length of this book, and yeah, it's 385 pages. But the book is written just like I talk. And we've had a rule since the very first edition. There has to be something you can use today on every page. So there's no wasted words in that book.
Oh, no, it definitely is. I didn't mean that as a negative. I meant it as a positive, and that there's just so much we have to know about this. Martin, can you tell us the website where we can find out more about the Ultimate Job Search Guide?
Well, you can find out more about the Ultimate Job Search Guide at any online bookstore and any local bookstore. And then, of course, there's our website, knockemdead.com, where we do the coaching and the resume services.
And just to clarify for people, it's the word knock and then EM and then the word dead.com.
Yeah. As in knock 'em dead, kid. Go out and knock 'em dead.
But really, I think this is so important to people, and we can waste so much time looking for a job and being frustrated and saying, wait, what is wrong? Why don't they like me? Or is it discrimination? Am I young, old, left-handed? But really, there's the tips in here are, Martin knows, the way people are looking at for jobs and how they're going to look at you and what they're going to look at in your resume. What is a way we can identify what's missing? Do we go through the book here, or do we call you up, or how do we find that out in our own resume?
What's wrong with your resume? Well, actually, there's an offer with this book. If you get the book and you write an honest review of it, on the website where you bought it, and then send me an email at knock'emdead saying, here's the link to my review, here's my resume. You say in the book you'll give me a free resume review. And it'll take a few days, but I will actually personally review your resume. And the reason we're doing this is because I get severely penalized by Amazon and Barnes & Noble for updating a book every year. It means I start every year with 0 endorsements.
Oh, I get. Okay, that makes sense. It makes sense both ways. And just to have you take a look at it, again, any tip that someone can get, I think it's putting in, and you're the expert to put it in their favor. What are some of the questions that we should be aware of that an employer may ask? We have about 30 seconds, so can you tell us some questions we should look for?
The very worst one, what's your greatest weakness? Don't tell them you work too hard. You pick something that everyone in your profession has a problem with. Example, keeping up with the technology. So you say something like, if I'm honest, it's really keeping up with the technology. It's changing so fast in our field. I just completed a certification course in. So you say, I have this challenge that all of us share and we all hate it, but this is how I'm keeping up.
Even that's great because instead of getting caught off guard by that question and maybe coming out with a stupid answer that we regret later on and say, why did I say that? It was so foolish. You're alerting us to what that person is likely to ask, and who knows, maybe they read your book 2 years ago or when they got their job, so they remember a lot of these questions from the book. Martin, it's always been fun going through this with you, and there's so much more we have to learn. Again, I'd like our audience to know our guest has been Martin Yate. The book is The Ultimate Job Search Guide. And Martin, would you tell us about that website once again?
It's knock'emdead.com, and the book's available everywhere.
Martin, thank you so much for being with us. Maybe we'll be talking again in a few years.
Hey, take care, everyone. Make good memories.
Martin, thank you again for being with us. We'd like to remind our audience that you've been listening to The Secrets of Success on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm your host, Bill Horan, asking you to please join us again next week at the same time when we will continue our journey to success.